Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head up towards Gothenburg this time, or Göteborg you should say in Swedish, which as I've told you many a time is the craft beer city when it comes to Sweden these days. There's some great beer coming out of the city of Gothenburg these days. But for this review we're going to head back to one of the most revered and most well respected craft breweries in Sweden, and in my opinion that reputation is very well deserved. Pretty much anything these guys try seems to turn to gold. So for this review we are going to head to Landvetter, which is a little bit to the northeast of the city of Gothenburg, and we're going to try yet another beer from Bryggeri. So this one is the Boom Barrle, which is a barrel aged barley wine coming in at 11% ABV. So it is a little bit of a monster, this one, but you know, knowing Dugas, I'm sure this one will be a pretty damn awesome beer. This was one of the other small partiers that was released on the 26th of April 2019 through Systembolaget here in Sweden, so it is in very short supply. Maybe this one is available abroad, I'm not quite sure about that. Let me know in the comments section below, but it should be a really interesting beer. I've reviewed about 20 or so beers from Dugas now, and pretty much all of them have been pretty damn impressive. So really looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Bryggeri before. No doubt I will add some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Bryggeri then, on to my brewery notes before we open up the beer. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Bryggeri are currently based in Landvetter, which is just on the outskirts of Gothenburg to the northeast of the city itself, and Gothenburg is on the west coast of Sweden. But the brewery itself was established back in 2005 in Mölndal, a little bit to the south of Gothenburg, by Mikael Engström Dugge, and since 2010 they focused mainly on the production of top fermented beers, so mainly like IPAs, sour beers, and also some kind of fruit IPAs and things like this as well. But due to the renaissance that was going on in Swedish craft beer at the time, this brewery very quickly outgrew their original brewery they had, and so they had to move up to Landvetter, closer to the airport. But the older brewery had a very small capacity of only 1,500 hectolitres of beer per year, but their new brewery started off with an 8,000 hectolitre per year capacity, and I think they've upscaled that quite considerably since they've moved into the new premises. But recently they've also been investing quite heavily in their barrel aging program as well, and they have been getting a little bit more adventurous with different styles of beer over the last little while. They've been producing quadruples, they've been producing barley wines. I think there's been a couple more imperial stouts and things like that come out as well, but mainly this brewery seemed to focus on sour beers and IPAs. In particular the Crush double IPA is a really nice beer. The Mango is one of my favourite beers I've had from these guys as well, a lovely mango, slightly sour IPA. But pretty much anything you try from Bryggeri I think you are going to appreciate, and I would say that I would go as far as with this brewery as saying that you could pretty much pick any style of beer that you like and from this brewery, and you will really appreciate what they're doing here. A very solid brewery in my opinion, and they're very highly regarded here in Sweden, where the standard of craft brewing is actually pretty damn high in my opinion, and generally across Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden and Denmark, the standard of the craft beer here is very good these days. So yeah, Bryggeri, if it comes to Scandinavian breweries, these guys are one that you definitely need to check out. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about the brewery for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram. That'll keep you up to date on all the latest goings on at the brewery. You can check out their website, and of course you can check out the Untappd profile as well, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest beers and things like that that they're releasing. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So this is a beer that has a little bit of a complicated story, so I thought I would read out, don't often do this, but I thought I would read out the actual blurb that's on the website for this beer. So it says on the website, this is one of those beers that come out of experience, wanting and necessity. A few years back we did a barley wine called Bring It On. It was blended to 1/10 barrel aged imperial stout and it was really good. So we knew that the blend worked and we wanted to do it again. A few months back we emptied some cognac barrels holding We Are Beer Bristol, an imperial stout with cocoa, vanilla and tonka beans, and those cognac barrels were too nice to get rid of, so we brewed another barley wine and filled up the barrels with it, and we're very happy that we did. Very happy. So this beer is this is a barley wine that they've aged in a special cognac barrel that they've aged another imperial stout in. So it's kind of, I guess the correct way to describe this particular beer would be that it is a barley wine, but it's aged in an imperial stout cask, this one, and the imperial stout itself had some vanilla, tonka beans and cocoa in it. So I think this will be a really kind of unusual beer actually. I think this will be a very, very interesting one for us to try. So like I said at the start of the video, this one is an 11% barley wine. It says on the side, this is not a barley wine, this is a barley wine, but not only that, it's also an imperial stout infused cognac, cocoa, vanilla and tonka bean barrel aged barley wine. It's a mouthful in the best of ways, completely unique. Boom. So yeah, it should be really interesting. They had one that was called Tonkanillo Mangaringe not that long ago, and it was a very very unusual beer actually. So I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. And Dugas seem to be one of the masters of adding random things to beer in Sweden actually. They seem to be a bit of a master of adjuncts actually. But yeah, nicely presented this one. The artwork is fairly similar to what you would expect from Dugas, and this beer in particular is part of their barrel aging series, and you can just see the symbol for that there on the side of the bottle. Just a plain bottle cap on this one. I keep saying this, it would be nice if Dugas actually had just a black bottle cap with Dugas written over the top of it. It would be a nice little touch to their beers. I keep complaining about that. But it says on the side here, this one has barley, oats, cocoa, vanilla, tonka bean, hops and yeast inside it. So yeah, should be a very, very interesting beer, this one. Like I said at the start of the video, an 11% barley wine aged in cognac barrels that previously had an imperial stout with cocoa, vanilla and tonka beans in it. So yeah, we'll just see how we get on with this one. This is definitely one of the more unusual beers that I've had in Sweden generally, and also from Dugas. And to say that it's one of the more unusual beers I've had from Dugas is quite a statement, because they are a producer of pretty random stuff on certain occasions. But yeah, when you open this beer up, you definitely can pick out some of the tonka bean notes on this. It's got a very smooth vanilla beany kind of aroma to it actually. But as you can see, this beer's poured a lovely kind of, if I hold it up to the light, it's definitely a sort of mahogany ruby colour. I think that's a fair way to describe this one. You can see there's about a third or a half of a frothy, a third or a half finger of a frothy, I would say beige, fawny kind of head on this one, but it looks very nice. When you take in a little whiff of the hops, you can smell in this one that the hops have dropped quite a bit. So this beer's obviously been sitting for a little bit. And usually with a barley wine, you want to let it age, you want to let it sit for at least 6 months so that it just kind of, the hops drop a little bit and it smooths out. So I'm guessing this beer has been sitting for a good little while. But in terms of its colour, it's actually crystal clear. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see that on the camera, but this is a crystal clear barley wine, and I think it's fair to say it's a very dark mahogany, but it's also got a little bit of a kind of, it's almost got a little bit of a mahogany cherry-ish colour to it, which is really, really nice. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, as I said, and it had a nice kind of 1/3 half finger of a frothy kind of fawn beigey coloured head. But overall it looks pretty nice. Nothing particularly surprising about this one when you consider that it's a barley wine. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. I think this is going to be a really interesting beer actually. Ooh. Yeah, that's a really unusual but very, very interesting aroma. So straight away with this beer, for me, you've got a hell of a lot of brown sugar in this one. It's got a sweet caramelly note to it. You can pick up a little bit of a treacly molasses kind of thing in there, but mainly it's a sweet but slightly toasty caramelly brown sugar, but you can kind of tell that this beer's had a slightly longer boil on it because of how syrupy the brown sugars actually smell. Mixing into that, there's definitely a little bit of a chocolatey note. It's kind of a more milky chocolate, I would say, but you've also got the nice vanilla qualities mixing in with that as well. The tonka beans are a very unique aroma, and it's quite difficult, it's quite difficult to describe them, but I would say that they blend in very well with vanilla. I've always been a big fan of like chili con carne, and chilies and stuff like that, and beans. By no means am I a vegetarian or anything like that, but I really appreciate the different flavours of like black beans and all of this. And the bean aromas in this mix very well with the vanilla and the chocolate to some degree, mainly with the vanilla, and also the woody aspects of the beer, because you will notice that this beer has a really strong kind of woody, oaky backbone to it actually. It's got a very smooth, oaky vanilla type quality to it, which is really, really interesting. So yeah, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. It's definitely for me also got a little bit of a nutty quality as well, which is really interesting. But the thing you're going to notice right away with this beer is it's a very good balance between smoothness and sweetness. There's a little touch of toasty quality in there as well, but overall, for me, it's just a very, it's just a really, really nice, beautiful beer. This, I think, the aroma is really, really kind of top class on this. But the imperial stouts I've had from Dugas, even the IPAs and the fruit beers and stuff, always seem to have a good level of complexity to them. And as I said, pretty much anything this brewery put their hand to, it's going to turn out pretty well. I'd love to see them have a go at a Scotch ale, but that's a style that I've still not seen from them yet. But yeah, the way that the malt base in this one goes together really is the highlight of the beer. The tonka beans really add a really interesting complexity to it, and it blends in very, very well, particularly with the vanilla side of the beer, as I was saying. In terms of the fruity notes in the beer then, and the hops and things, I mean, you can pick out, there is a little touch of earthiness in there, there's a little bit of grassiness, but that's quite minimal. Really the malt base and the adjuncts that they've added into this beer, and I mean, most of the aromas in this beer and flavours and stuff will come from the actual aging process of the beer, because they did say, they put an imperial stout in this barrel, and then they've brewed the barley wine and stuck that into the barrel after the imperial stout. So most of these complexities that you get into the beer, I'm guessing that they will be quite subtle, and they've just come out of the wood, because anything you put into one of these oak barrels infuses into the wood, the flavours infuse into the wood, and then whatever you put in the barrel after that, it infuses back into the beer or the whiskey or whatever actually. But yeah, it's a lovely aroma, this one, but very, very unique. It's actually quite hard to describe properly on camera what's going on in this aroma. So if you get the chance to try this beer, for this one in particular, I recommend you do take just a couple of minutes and try and get your head around the aroma fully, because it is pretty unusual in that regard. But a lovely sweet and smooth malty adjunct kind of quality to this one. Little touch of hoppy note. On the fruity side of things, yeah, it's got a little bit of a... It's definitely got a little touch of a figgy note to it. There's some kind of candied strawberry in there, maybe a little touch of a plummy, raisiny sharpness in there, but mainly it's a juicy, red, fruity ester that's coming out of this one. But the aroma on this beer is absolutely beautiful, so just enjoy it before you try the beer. As I always say, that's half the experience when it comes to whiskies and sakes and things like that. But let's have a taste of this beer and just see how we get on then. So this one is the Boom Barrel, an 11% barley wine from Dugas Bryggeri in Gothenburg in Sweden. A barley wine beer that's aged in a cask that previously had a cocoa, vanilla and tonka bean imperial stout in it. One of the more unusual mouthful beers that I've been able to review for you here on the channel, but from one of my favourite Swedish breweries. So let's get stuck into this one then. Slange Skål. Yeah. Now, I've just taken the tiniest of sips out of this glass, but what I'm going to tell you is that this is probably, in fact no, I don't think it's probably at all, this is one of the most complex beers that I've come across from Dugas Bryggeri, and it works out just beautifully, to be honest with you. There's a few beers where you can just take a little sip of it and you know that it's a kind of awesome world-class beer, and for me this one Really is that, actually. It's something that's so... I mean, first off, it's so experimental and so random, you just have to take your hat off to Dougas and say, you know, well done for even thinking to do that. And this isn't the first time I've said that about one of the beers that Dougas do. I would say that these guys really kind of embrace the sort of entrepreneurial spirit, if you like. I don't know if that's the right word to say, the experimental spirit, something like that. But, you know, they always seem to think of really random stuff to do, and then somehow they just pull it off really well. So, you know, a big thumbs up to Dougas Bryggeri on this beer. Yet again, it's one of these more random things that they've just pulled off absolutely beautifully. And, you know, I've got a couple of beers that stick in mind with Dougas, but this is one that again is going to make me rethink that list of beers that I have. This is just lovely. So if you get the chance to try this one, I highly recommend that you do. It really is just very, very nice. Yeah. So let's try and break the flavour of this one down a little bit. So, middle of your palate then. What you're going to feel with this one straight away is the woody, oaky flavours. They just blanket the middle of your tongue. They take over the whole centre of your palate here. And the further you go into the aftertaste, you feel the other flavours just kind of fade away a little bit. And really for me, it's the barrel-aged woody qualities that come out of this one. And, you know, if this is one of the first barrel-aged beers that they're producing, then I think it says some good things about how that's going to be in the future. They're going to have some really interesting experiments going on over the next little while, but the woody, oaky flavours to this beer are really forming the kind of the linchpin of the beer, if you like. So you can feel the tonka beans just sort of blending into this woody, oaky base that you have. It's not right to say they're a little bit spicy, but there is almost a tiny little bit of spice from the tonka bean flavours. You know, there's some... it's a very, very unique flavour. I need to try the tonka beans on their own, but I have had other beers from Dougas Bryggeri that have had these tonka beans in them, and it's an ingredient that's pretty damn random actually, but it really seems to work with the beers. The further you go into the aftertaste with this beer as well, you start to get more of the kind of vanilla qualities out of it. I would say that the chocolate in this beer is quite minimal. I mean, they've added cocoa to it, and in fairness, in the middle of your palate you do get a little bit of cocoa, but for me this beer is more about the wood, the tonka beans and the brown sugars, and also some of the, you know, the vanilla flavours too. This is a really just very unique and interesting blend of things. I've never quite had a beer like this one, and for it to be a barley wine actually, that I think that suits the combination of flavours that's going on here. This combination I think could actually work very well as an imperial stout as well, right enough. But yeah, I'm finding if you focus on the centre of your palate, there's really a nice vanilla quality in this beer as well. You get, when you first take this beer in, it comes in across the middle of your palate as being quite oily. Then you get the vanilla flavour sitting there. The woodiness, as I say, spreads throughout your whole palate, and the tonka beans, it's almost like the tonka beans are just infused into the wood, which makes sense. But in the very centre of your palate you've got this nice brown sugary caramel note. It's more of a kind of sweet caramel rather than anything else. It doesn't really have a toasted quality to it. It's more of a kind of sweet, slightly syrupy caramel, and you can feel that in the very, very centre of your palate. That's just kind of sitting there, but it soon dries out a little bit and you start to get more of the kind of tonka bean flavours in there. The tonka beans manage to kind of push their way throughout the whole beer. I'm really not getting much in the way of chocolate in this one though, right enough. But when you come further forward on the palate, you start to get a little bit more of the vanilla notes in there. Just towards the front of the palate you're getting more and more of the vanilla notes out of it, and they blend into the flavour really quite well actually. But it's the way that the backbone of this beer works, I think, is really interesting. As I say, the oaky woody smoothness in there, and you've also got the tonka beans just infused into that, and everything else just kind of sits on top there. So caramel in the very centre of the palate, and also the more vanilla notes just a little bit further towards the front of the tongue there. The cognac, I mean, I've not drank... Cognac is basically French, a kind of French whiskey spirit from what I gather. I've never really... Have I ever tried cognac? I can't think. But you know, it doesn't really have a sort of spirity quality to it, this one, but cognac, from what I remember, was supposed to be quite a sweet whiskey, and I suppose you can kind of get some of that vibe from this beer actually. So there maybe is a little bit of a kind of cognac infusion in there. That's something that's somewhere that I will need to develop my palate on. As I always say, these beer reviews are a learning experience for both myself and I hope for you guys as well. But it really, the way that everything goes together in the middle of the palate in this beer is the whole secret of why it's so good. I mean, this is one of the most complex barley wines I've come across. It really does make you think about everything that's going on in the palate, but at the same time, it's really pretty bloody good actually. And as I say, Dougas are a master of taking all these different adjuncts and managing to do incredible things with them. So a huge thumbs up to Dougas for this beer. This is one of the more complex and more unusual ones that they've produced, and to say that for Dougas is quite a statement, because they do really random stuff, as I've said. But yeah, that's really nice. If you get the chance to try this beer for yourself, do have a go at it. On the hoppy side of things then, back corner of the palate, I would say it's got a little bit of earthy character in there, to be fair. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that just smooths out a little bit. You know, I want to say there's a tiny little bit of a herbal note in there, but it's very, very minimal. As you come towards the front corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a floral aromaticity there, but it's quite a smooth floral aromaticity rather than being kind of spicy and bitey, if you like. And then round the very front curve of the palate, you get a very light but also very smooth grassiness out of the beer. And behind the front curve of the tongue, of course, you've got that little oily bubble where some of those juicy, fruity esters start to come out of the beer. For me, that fruity side of the beer, it has a little bit of an almost kind of cakey element to it. There's, you know, sort of prunes and dates and things in there. It's almost got a little bit of that kind of medicinal phenol quality to it as well, which is quite interesting. Yeah, definitely has a little bit of that medicinal sort of phenol quality to it in there. But like I say, dates, prunes. Further you go into the aftertaste, you get a little bit more of a kind of figgy note out of this one. It's got a kind of cough syrupy element to it as well. You can feel almost in the front part of your palate just how boozy this beer is. There's almost a little bit of a very toasty note in the front part of your palate as well, like an almost toasty charred red fruit or something like that, which is kind of unusual. But the further you go into the aftertaste, you start to get more of a figgy note out of it. There's a little bit of a kind of candied red fruit in there as well. As I always say, it reminds me of these little heart-shaped sweets you get in the Haribo Star Mix too. But you know, overall, this is just it's a beautiful beer, this one. I'm not surprised when it comes to Dougas, because they always find really random things to do with the beers that they're producing, and this is yet another example of that. And this is probably one of the more complex beers that I've come across from them in recent times as well. And it's quite a, you know, to say that this is one of the more complex beers that Dougas have done is quite the statement actually, because they're the masters of adding random stuff to beer actually. And but this I have to say is one of my favourite beers that I've reviewed from them. This is really pretty damn good actually, so a huge thumbs up to Dougas for this one. And you know, keep them coming. This barrel aging program, they've been investing quite heavily in this, so I'm really interested to see what this throws up over the next little while. And one of the great things is they do seem to release these all here in Sweden, which is awesome for us. But yeah, a beautiful barley wine, this one, very unusual, but at the same time just really pretty damn good actually. So if you get the chance to try this beer for yourself, have a go at it and just see what you think. In terms of the mouthfeel, a full-bodied beer, I don't think there's much doubt about that. Carbonation's very smooth, the mouthfeel leans towards the oily side of things. The hoppy side of the beer is very smooth. I'd be surprised though if you get anything more than 20 IBUs out of this. I'd be very, very surprised about that. The malt base has a really good balance between the smoothness and the sweetness and things, but you know, it is a barrel aged beer. It's quite difficult to draw that line between, you know, the adjuncts and the actual malt base itself, but it works really, really well. So mainly a kind of sweet and very smooth malt base in this one. A little bit of smoothness from the hops, as I said, I think about 20 IBUs at most, but also some really quite complex and interesting juicy fruity notes. Like I say, figs, dates, maybe a little bit of prunes and cakey note coming out of this one as well. But just a beautiful, beautiful beer, this one of the more complex ones that I've had from Dougas, and that's not something I say lightly, but a beautiful beer. And if you get the chance to try this, then I highly recommend that you do. Just another awesome beer from Dougas Brewery in Landvetter, just outside of Gothenburg. So let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Boom Barrel, an 11% barrel-aged barley wine from Dougas Brewery in Landvetter, just outside of Gothenburg here in Sweden. A beautiful beer that you really need to try for yourself to appreciate it fully, and I hope this isn't the last time that we see this beer. That's the one sad thing about Dougas, actually. They produce some really, really good stuff, but you will only come across it once. I think this is just basically a one-off brew, but it's a shame actually, because it is that good. This is one of my top 5 beers, I guess I would say, from Dougas. So if you can, get it, because you're not going to find it around for very, very long. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dougas Brewery as well. And if you get the chance to try this one, I highly recommend that you do. Make sure you check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon with more beer reviews. The Boom Barrel, a barrel-aged barley wine at 11% from Dougas Brewery in Landvetter, just outside of Gothenburg in Sweden. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanja, skål.